think it was a combination of multiple things. So some people, and my grandfather is a big developer back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back on the East Coast, and in some great buildings around Philadelphia. And I've kind of been surrounded by architecture and construction. And I've always liked being around construction sites and building things when I was very young. And, you know, designing, making models, building things from a very young age. So I think it was a combination of those two things that really got me inspired by it. Well, this house is pretty darn good. It's a fun project. It's called the Schnabel Residence. It's located on West Chino Canyon Drive, which is just over the west side of town here, up in an area called Little Tuscany. This was a great project. Our architecture firm is a little different than a lot of other firms in that we're trying to put a bunch of architects together and have us as architects build projects. And so this was the third project we built from the ground up. We feel like we can get a lot more out of the project. We love to build stuff. We love to see these things get built and come to fruition. So I think as one of our favorites, there's a lot of earthwork and boulder removal and removal. It's a hillside lot in Little Tuscany, so it kind of, you know, sort of flies off the hillside there. I grew up back on the East Coast, and I'm from New York and Philadelphia, and so I was within reaching distance were several Frank Lloyd Wright projects. The Elrod house out here is one of my favorites, and I've been able to go to that house quite a bit for several parties and events and things like that. It takes an incredible amount of time and work to be able to, design these projects and have a relationship with an owner. Could take a year before we even start construction on something like this, and construction can take a year and a half or 2 years, and so that was just construction. The design process for that took a little over a year for all the permitting and approval. So it's an incredible amount of time and a very lengthy relationship that we've now had with the owners of this house. And there's some sacrifices that we have to make, and that's always a struggle with me, is how much time it takes. And so we work early in the morning and work till late at night, and takes a lot of time to be able to plan and build for things like this. Some struggles with clients. As designers, I think we all think we may have the best answer for something, and we do a lot of thorough research to not just impose our will on clients or their project with our design, but we have a pretty lengthy process where we try to really get inside their heads and their lifestyle and how they want to live before we approach a design project. And we do that by sending out questionnaires to the owners and really try to get back as much information as we can on how they live their daily lives, how they sleep, how they eat, what they want to do when they wake up, if they work out. It's a lot of it's very personal stuff, and so we try to get all that information before we lay out a project for them. However, at times, even with all that knowledge, our response is not always the same design response that maybe they were expecting or they want. So I think we need to be open-minded as we, differ on opinion or design strategies or solutions for certain issues throughout the design. And that's been a really good strategy, to be able to be a good listener. And just like any relationship, it needs to be a two-way street, and people need to listen to each other and cooperate and work pretty well. So I would say that's a pretty good strategy, is to be a good listener and good negotiator. So we're expanding our office to Los Angeles also, so that's a big goal for a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan. and it's going to take a few years to do that, and we're starting that process right now. Would like to expand and do more sacred spaces like churches, mosques, things like that, synagogues, things of places of reflection, holy places. And I think the reason for that is because I feel like a lot of the great architecture and the great architects of the world have taken spaces like that and done some of their best work or most poetic work, where the architecture just kind of invokes certain feelings or emotions in people when they experience those spaces. So the architecture program, to get a Bachelor of Architecture degree, is a 5-year program in college. When I graduated high school, I worked in a factory for a few years, and then I went back to school full time. So it was, let's say, 18 when I graduated, 22 when I went back, 5 years, 27, so 28 when I started my career. Architecture is a career of patience. You have to be patient, and I'm not a patient person at all. And so that's taken a lot of learning for me. And as much as it takes patience, because these things take a lot of time, like I said, I think it takes a huge amount of persistence and focus on your goal. And so you guys or anybody else has?
You know, you mentioned about sacred spaces, and we have a group who their project is on the church here.
Yeah, it's a great project.
And it was interesting. They interviewed some of the older parishioners who've been here 50 years or whatever, and to hear what they love about the church. It was just their, particular area they like to go or sit at or meditate or pray. It was so interesting to hear their thoughts and how important that building is to them. And so I can see why that would be. Have you ever designed a church or mosque or anything before?
Just for school projects in college. Yeah. What were some of the things that were important to them?
One lady knew the story behind the crucifix. The fact that the priest at that time had just been out in Arizona. He saw this tree and he said, "That's it."
Mm-hmm.
And so they hired an artist, and that explained the crucifix. One lady, it was the choir area, because she's been a member of the choir for so many years. And for other people, many times it's the smaller chapels.
Okay.
On the sides or the daily chapel as well. But like I said, it was just so interesting to hear their thoughts.
Interesting. Is anybody here thinking about becoming an architect or something like that? Oh, yeah?
Like interior designer.
I just like the idea of designing your own, or giving your own ideas for
Mm-hmm. That's great. Awesome. Well, if you guys could always follow up with more email questions or things like that. And if you ever want to take a tour or organize a small tour or something of one of these projects, let me know. We can certainly arrange that too.
That would be great, because the photos you showed are just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way the house that had the long...
Cantilever?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
How well it blended in with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about when you go to build, considering the environment and how that influences what you do?
Sure.
Okay.
So with every project, we spend a fair amount. That's sort of the subterranean guest house there. We spend a lot of time on the site, sometimes with the client or their family, and then, well, always with them for a little bit. But we spend quite a bit of time there by ourselves and just sort of taking it all in and playing around. And then we may start some drawings or sketches, then we'll take it back to the site and probably make some modifications to that. And I think if no one's done this before, the importance for that is every site's different and every view is going to be a little different. And depending on the space, so like a bedroom or a bathroom or a living room or a kitchen, and depending on how those families, what those responses have been in their questionnaire and our interviews with them and the time we've spent with them, as those answers different things to capture, different views, different light patterns will become different for every project. So no two people are alike, and no response in architecture would be the same as for someone else. So it requires a fair amount of time, spending time getting to know the client, and then getting to know how to respond to that in design at the site. For example, needing to know if these people are early risers in the morning, or do they like to sleep in and need complete darkness in the morning, would help make a determination on where to locate a bedroom or situate it. And do they want that eastern sun as it's coming up, or?
Thinking about architecture as a career,
Mhm.
what would you suggest they do now as far as developing interests, or any advice you have on that?
Yeah, well, I would think when I was growing up and at this age, I spent a lot of time at construction sites poking around. I had the benefit of having family that was around it and doing it too, and so their offices were filled with models and things like that and drawings, and so I would see that at home. But if there's a way to be around that more, then I would say go be around it more. We trespassed all the time on construction sites and poked around and did that kind of thing. And so I would encourage people to go to construction sites and things like that. It helped me get interested in it. I think that's a good start.
Any other questions?
At
Yeah.
any point did you doubt yourself while becoming an architect?
Yeah, I'd say so, probably fairly often. And I may have doubted myself last week, and so I doubt myself all the time, and that's what I mean about it. It takes a lot of persistence, and it's hard work. It's hard work because it takes a lot of time, and I think creativity also doesn't always come easy to me or us in the office, and sometimes we put things down and work on something else because we're just stuck on something. So I think self-doubt and doubting yourself is going to happen for everybody no matter what they do, and you've got to be strong and know the end goals and be persistent enough to know that and have the confidence that it's all going to work out, and we'll figure out a way to do it, and we always do, and we're doing pretty good at it. Mm-hmm.